of the Russian community when I started way back when. This duality of, well, I'm not sure if this is true, or I don't want to believe, but I believe in something, but I don't know how to articulate it. And that's something that, I've spent the last, since 2009, it's going to be a long time already, almost 13 years, of trying to come up with a language that's meaningful for a young group of people whose heritage was completely robbed and stolen from them. And I believe that. Like, my mission at Rage was always thinking about how these are people that I'm speaking in front of, the people who I let into my house, the people who I'm traveling around the world with, were individuals whose families were robbed of heritage, and I'm in this unique position to try to give them some meaning, an opportunity to reacquaint them with something that actually belonged to them. And certainly Lag BaOmer, as far as a holiday, is a holiday that most Russian Jews don't know about. Right? Most Jews don't even know about Lag BaOmer. And the question is, what is it that we're going to be celebrating? The basic concept for tonight is this question of the power of unity. And I want to use this as a way of kind of inspiring the group here to learn a little bit about Lag and think a little bit about what we could be doing during this time of the year for ourselves and for the world at large. So we know that Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students, right? 24,000 students, and they all died. They died from the second night of Passover until the 33rd of Lag BaOmer. It's machloket as to whether or not it was if they stopped dying on the 33rd, they stopped dying on the 34th. It doesn't really matter. 24,000 students, they died. Okay, and the Gemara tells us, the Gemara in Reuvain tells us that the reason why they died is because it says they did not give each other respect. Right, it's a very severe punishment to have so many people die with lack of respect. Right? Why is this kavod, this lack of respect, such a big deal for these students? And then the Gemara continues and says, Ad Sheva Rabbi Akiva, until Rabbi Akiva comes back, he goes to the rabbis of the south, and he teaches them, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel. And these 5 rabbis become the new catalyst of so much of the work that Rabbi Akiva is doing in the world as far as coming up with a language to inspire a generation of Jews that are already assimilating to Greek Roman culture, right? So how did he get it wrong? 24,000 students is an army, right? They should have got it right. How did it go so wrong? And why is this honor thing such a big deal that to the point where the lack of that honor created a Shema of destruction that almost erased all the educators in Israel that had the power and the ability of inspiring a generation that could have easily been lost. So I want to highlight another Gemara that talks a little bit about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his story. Okay? One of the things we're celebrating Lag BaOmer is the fact that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai died. It's a weird sentence to say, you celebrate a death. But the Zohar says that on the 33rd of Omer, the 33rd night of the Omer, it's Hidulah, it's a marriage between souls. That Rabbi Shimon, this rabbi, who's one of the 5 students of Rabbi Akiva, reached such a high exalted level that he had this marriage, his soul was reunited with the source, right? The source. So there's a connection. So we're celebrating not the fact that he died, we're celebrating the fact that his soul was able to reach this exalted state of connecting with the infinite. Okay? So his story is interesting. So he was living during the times of the Romans. The Romans at this point had basically outlawed all Jewish education. It's kind of like the Soviet Union. And there were individuals who were kind of like the rebels, who were like the teaching Torah. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was actually caught for teaching Torah, and there was a warrant for his arrest, him and his son. Okay, and they would catch it, death penalty. Breaking the law, that's it. You're going to throw you up on a cross. Okay, so Rabbi Shimon finds out about this, and he decides to hide. He's going to go into hiding. So he first tries to hide in a local study hall, but it's too much attention to him. So then he goes in and he says, we gotta go completely off the grid. We're going into some cave. They find some cave somewhere in the south, and they're in this cave, and there's a small carob tree in there, and a small spring of water. They bury themselves in the sand so their clothing doesn't wear out. They're sitting and learning for 12 years straight. It's a long time. Okay? They're in there for 12 years. Okay? Now, however you want to understand this, they come out of this cave, and the Gemara tells us that the prophet Eliyahu comes and says, it's time for you to come out. Okay? The decree has been nulled. People that are looking for you are all dead. That regime is gone. Now you're free to roam. So you imagine that you have these two guys, Rabbi Shimon and his son, right, who are these amazing sages, spend 12 years non-stop engaging in intense spiritual learning and growth, that when they would come out, they would be super mature guys. These guys would be super Jewish people. These guys would come out and educate and change the world. That's what Rabbi Akiva wanted. His whole purpose, his 5 students were to come out and make a difference. But what ends up happening is surprising. Okay? Naku, right? They emerge from the cave, right? And they see people, right, who are plowing and sowing in the field. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, these people, they abandoned an eternal life for their own sustenance? What kind of losers are these people? Right? That every place, Gemara says that every place that Rabbi Shimon and his son Rabbi Lazar directed their eyes, immediately burned into flames. They literally got like laser vision and they're setting everything on fire. Right? So, listen, I've learned from the Beit Midrash, not for 12 years, but I don't know anyone that walks out of the Midrash now has, like Superman powers to like burn things up and into combusting flames. It doesn't work like that. So whenever the Gemara says something that's interesting, we have to ask the question, well, what are we supposed to learn from that? How do we understand the story? Like these guys were sitting, they were learning, they were engaged in spiritual development, they're coming out and they see a guy what's he doing? He's got a job, right? He's supporting his family. Why does this guy deserve to be set on fire and burnt? Right? A heavenly voice comes out and says to them, did you come out of this cave to destroy my world? You got to go back to the cave that you come from. In the more academic circles, by the way, if you're familiar with Aristotle's allegory of the cave, this story is the antithesis of that story, but that's for another time. So they sat in this, it's interesting, right? They go back into the cave, and they wait for 12 months. You say 12 months is the amount of time that when a soul is judged, Gehenom is less than 12 months. It must be we can emerge after the 12 months. As they're debating it, a divine voice comes in and says, get out of the cave. You come out of the cave. So they come out of the cave. Now, everywhere that Rabbi Lazar would look at, he would set on fire, and Rabbi Shimon, his father, would heal it. So you just had another 12 months. You didn't learn the lesson the first time. You're coming out, you're setting everything on fire. And now the father, for some reason, he has a change of heart. We don't know why. But his son is still burning everything up. So the Gemara records and says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says to his son Elazar, he says, my son, he says, Amrlo, Bini, Dai la'olam ani v'ata. Right? The world, it would have been enough just for the two of us in the world. Like, don't get too excited about, what's going on. Just our own stuff is good. Don't worry about it. It's like a weird response. Like, how is that helping the situation? Now, you'd think that at this point, Rabbi Shimon or Rabbi Elazar would learn some kind of tolerance, right? This is not tolerance at all. This is still intolerance. The fact that he's got to heal and he's got to say this word of don't worry about it. Like they're losers basically, and the world's just for the two of us. It's enough for the two of us. Forget about everybody else. How is that a response even from the rabbi? So, but it continues. Okay, the Gemara continues, and it says like this. It says, it says that the sun was setting, right? It's Erev Shabbat. And they saw an elderly man who's holding 2 bundles of hadassim, of myrtle branches, right? And they're running. It's getting really late. Shabbat's coming, and they said to this guy, the rabbi and his son said to this guy, "Why are you holding these 2 bundles of myrtle?" So he says, "I have this to honor Shabbat." So why 2? He says, one for Shamor, one for Zachor, one for the remembering, and the other for safeguarding. So Rabbi Shimon turns to his son and says, see how dear these mitzvot, how beloved these mitzvot are for the Jewish people, right? And it says that that their minds were put at ease, they were no longer upset at what they saw, and they were happy. That's the end of the Gemara. And we're supposed to walk away feeling like comfortable about that story. I'm so uncomfortable with that story. It's actually disturbing. It's super troubling. So the question is, what are we meant to learn from the story, right? So there's a couple of ways of understanding it. These ideas are based on several different sources that I kind of stitched together. So let's see if it makes sense for you. There's no question that a key component of Judaism is spirituality, right? Now, spirituality is a very difficult thing to control. Spirituality is ruach, right? It's a spirit. It's uncontrollable power. It's massive. It's ginormous. And you take that powerful spirit and you put it into something that does not have the ability to maintain, control, direct that kind of spirit, not only will you burn the people around you, but you'll burn yourself. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come off of a race trip and say, Rabbi, I am ready to change my life. And I'm like, slow down, Sparky, you're not going anywhere, right? You're not going anywhere. There's one particular student, this is Tiffany, this is way back when, a 16-year-old girl that came to my house to help do some chesed a long time ago. And she decided to go to seminary, and she came back from seminary. And she's like, Rabbi, it's Rosh Hashanah. Can I spend time with your family? Rosh Hashanah, my family is a holiday. Can I spend time with you? No, you can't. Sorry. She said, what do you mean? I'm like, your parents. Your parents, teach your parents at the wedding, her wedding, her mom comes. Rabbi. With my daughter. Right? She says to me, I want to thank you. She says, I want to thank you because she told me how she wanted to go to your house and you wouldn't let her. And then you forced her to spend time with us. And she said, I appreciate the holiday so much more now because of that. So thank you so much for what you did. So this is a classic example. Someone gets inspired. They want to go ahead and express their Judaism in the fullest way possible. But they just don't understand how to express it in a way that's meaningful to people around them. And for me, my family, I didn't grow up religious. So when the word religious is a very derogatory word in the Russian language. Yozny is a very bad word. And, the religious people are the crazy people, they're the fanatics, they're the opium for the masses people. That's not who you want to be a part of. You want to stay away from all those religious people. And I understood that the reason why my parents felt that way is because often religious people would create so many obstacles in building a relationship. As people know, yeah, I know what you're talking about, right? So, create so many obstacles to building that relationship that they're just strange. It's just a weird thing, just being normal, right? Just being normal. And what was happening in the story up here is that Rabbi Shimon spent 12 years internalizing these very deep spiritual messages, these very deep spiritual ideas. He did not know how to contain himself. So he's literally setting the world on fire. Because in his eyes, if you're not involved in any kind of spirituality, it's tantamount to death. You don't deserve to be alive. That was where he was coming from. But he has a turn of heart. He realized that he was too extreme. But not his son. His son was not able to internalize the message. So Rabbi Shimon is now working on healing the world. He doesn't work on stopping his son, because he still is somewhat aligned with his son. So he's healing it. He's fixing. Whatever he breaks, I'll fix. Like a father-son relationship. I'm not ready to reprimand him and give him the discipline that he needs, but I'll start fixing the things that this guy breaks. So I'm fixing it. And now there's something that changes at the end of the story. Right? What happens? And instead of them sitting there and looking and judging the world, what do? They engage. They see a man carrying these two myrtle branches, these two bundles of myrtle. Right? Instead of saying, set the guy on fire and heal him, what do? They ask the question, where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And to their pleasant surprise, what he was involved in was beautiful. It may not have been what they wanted, but they still were able to see the beauty of the fact that this guy was engaged in something so simple as getting some flowers for Shabbat and trying to make Shabbat more meaningful. He wasn't the guy that was in syndicated for 12 years. That wasn't his job. He was the guy that was working the field, and for him, that was his beautiful, unique way of expressing his Judaism. Right? It was powerful. So what ends up happening is that you have two people that are coming from a world hyper, super focused, my way or the highway, hypercritical, right? Cancel culture will set you on fire, right? Do not try to change my mind on anything. I'm not going to engage in any conversation. And I believe that the reason why the Gemara is telling us this is because Rabbi Shimon was a student of Rabbi Akiva, which means that his philosophy, this ideology of my way or the highway, I'm not saying it came from Rabbi Akiva or not, but maybe that's something similar that the students of Rabbi Akiva were suffering from. They were unable to give kavod one to the other. It's like a basic principle of just respecting somebody. How could you not give kavod to your parents? How can you not have just simple gratitude for the people that have helped you and done so much for you? I feel so indebted to so many people to help me get to where I am. And I don't forget them. I pray for them. I think about them all the time. But are we those kinds of people that just take from the world around us? And if we are those kinds of people, we fail to learn the lesson of what it means to be a Jew. To be a Jew means to be someone that has tremendous amount of hoda'ah, right? Tremendous amount of just gratitude, a simple desire to feel grateful, to be thankful for the things that we have. And Rabbi Shimon comes out of the cave and he wants to burn the world that God created for him. That's not why we're here. Religion is not meant to be the Taliban where we come ahead and just set everything on fire because we don't like the way it is. We're supposed to engage in the conversation. There's a healing process in the Gemara of what Rabbi Shimon and his son go through to be able to appreciate the nuances of humanity. And the thing that I think that, for me, what encapsulates it is the fact that Gemara could have told me a story of anything they saw. Right? They could have seen, a guy giving tzedakah. They could have seen a guy doing something else. But it wasn't. It was specifically Shabbat. Shabbat is a time of holiness. It's a time of elevating the material into something that is spiritual. It's a time where I'm engaging in all of the material. I'm having a beautiful meal. I'm having people at my house. I'm having all the desserts. We're having the oneg. We're doing what we can to engage in the material world. But they're elevating it because they're using the material to something more. That was the lesson of Rabbi Shimon, something that he learned through very difficult circumstances, but ultimately was able to impart to his children. Now, we know that there's a precursor to Matan Torah, right? There's a precursor for the Jewish people to be able to receive the Torah. Why did God create the world? Right? I get that question all the time. Well, why did God create the world? So the classical answer that we get, which I think is the best answer, I don't know anyone else that intends to give a different answer, is that Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, the reason why God created the world, he said, God creates a world of kindness. And the reason why he creates the world is to bestow kindness to humanity. At the very least, all we can do as human beings, we want to mimic the Almighty. Our job is to go ahead and just be kind people at the simplest level. And I say this all the time. I have a family member who's considers himself to be an atheist, but really he's an agnostic. But I said to him, God will forgive you for not keeping your Shabbat. God will forgive you for not keeping kosher. God will forgive you for whatever laws you are uncomfortable with doing. But He will not forgive you for not having common decency. He will not forgive you for not being able to just show gratitude to the people that deserve gratitude. There's certain laws that between man and man that's not, God can't forgive you that. Only humanity can forgive you that. Like if I wronged you, I can't ask God forgiveness. I have to ask you for forgiveness. At the core of what Lag BaOmer is about, and this holiday that we're celebrating, this long holiday of Omer, just so it's clear, by the way, what does the word Omer mean? Anyone know? So the Omer is actually a measure, right? So it happens to be that during this time, the Omer, the Midah, the measure is a barley offering. There's one other time that we bring a barley offering, and it's with the Sotah. Isha Sotah. She also brings a barley offering. Right? This is a woman that was accused of adultery. She brings a barley offering as well. And there's a relationship between the two offerings. The idea, I think, is like this. If we're meant to elevate ourselves in something more, right? How do we do that? What does that mean to elevate ourselves? Let me explain to you what I mean. You see, each one of us are born with very specific set of nature, right? You are born, whether you believe in the Mazalot, whether you believe it's just your DNA, right? We have certain midot, we have certain traits that define us, and some of them are inescapable, right? Some of us get angry very quickly, we get frustrated, we get anxiety, whatever it is, right? Those are things we're just born with. Now, this is a very difficult idea for most people today to kind of internalize, but it shouldn't be for you guys. Are you defined by your emotions? Do your emotions define who you are? If I'm feeling angry, does that mean I should be angry? If I'm super hyper excited, is that expression of my emotion, should that determine my reaction to the circumstance that I find myself in? Or is it something different? Or am I meant to be someone whose intellect is defining the reality and the response that they're in? Right? This is a Jewish principle. Right? There's a famous story of this is Rabbi Yaakov Kanievsky. This is the Stifler Gaon, Reuvain Kanievsky's father. There was a man who comes to him and says to him, Rabbi, I have crazy anger issues. I'm about to lose my wife, my kids, my family, my job, out of control. So he says to him, okay, he's like, I can help you. He's like, I can heal you. He's like, really? He's like, how? He's like, I'm going to do it like this. You have to look at me, okay? Don't avert your eyes from looking at me the whole time. We're going to start in a minute. He's like, look at me and don't turn away. So he says, okay, I'll look at you. What are you going to do? So anyway, the rabbi starts making all these angry faces, like, and like starts making like all these like anger, emotive faces at him. And he says to him, like, Rabbi, what are you doing? It's been like 8 minutes of you making like these weird faces at me. So he says, I want to show you what you look like when you're angry. You look crazy. What are you doing? He's like, before you get angry, look at the mirror and see what your anger is causing, right? Think about what you're doing. The midah that we're supposed to be working on right now is the fact that there's supposed to be a measured response in how we respond to the world around us, right? The barley offering is an offering for animals. The wheat offering is what we bring in Shavuot, is for bread, we bring chalot, right? That is for human beings. We want to transcend the animal nature and ascend to being something called an Adam. The Vilna Gaon says there are 5 different words that are used to express man. You have the word Adam. You have the word you have the word Gever. You have the word Enosh. You have the word Ben Adam and Ish. And he says those 5 descriptions of man represent 5 different tiers of a human being. Adam being the lowest from the earth, and Ish being the highest, coming from the word Esh, the fire, the flame. Why is Ish considered to be the greatest expression of man? Well, let's think about fire for a minute, right? Fire is something that is consuming all the time, right? Consumption, constant consumption, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it depends, right? If I was in a constant state of consumption, it would be a very, very bad thing, right? But if I'm consuming for the sake of returning and giving back, right? Is that a bad consumption? Why am I taking? If I'm taking to give, if I'm going out to make money and give back, if I'm building beautiful homes, like I told you, we moved from Brooklyn to Whitmere. This is 2 years ago. It was a very hard decision. We spent 2.5 years with an architect figuring out how to legally get every single inch into that house. Basement, glass rooms, attics that are going to collapse and expand somehow. Every single kind of, legal shtick I could find, I figured it out. So it took me 2.5 years to do it. We were November 14th, 2019, right? We were on a Rage Shabbat. That was the last time I was on a Shabbaton with Rage, right before COVID. We're at a Shabbaton, and we're staying at the Rahmanis, which is where my neighbors right now, and they're like, you're crazy. Don't knock your house down. Don't do it. The whole world could go crazy in a minute. So many things could go wrong. Don't bother doing it. Just buy the house next door. The guy's been selling it forever. He's like, you'll get a great deal on it. It needs absolutely no work, and just move in. It's a moving condition. You'll be great. So I said to my wife, we move out of Brooklyn. She's like, friends, this, that. I'm like, okay, we'll go take a look at it. So we take a look at it. She fell in love. We made an offer, and they accepted it, and that was the beginning of an amazing journey, right? I'm sharing this because sometimes you have to be willing to let go, right? The reason why she wanted that house because she could get more bedrooms in that house than the house we were building in Brooklyn.
You're moving back, right?
What's that?
You're letting go and moving back.
I don't know. She's actually considering moving back now that my son was getting engaged and might be moving to Brooklyn, so she's actually considering. But we'll see. I just go wherever my wife tells me to go. So we end up. She says she wants this house not because of its size. She wants the house because she's constantly always trying to figure out where she could host all of our guests who were living here, and it was almost impossible to find beds for people, right? And she wanted a place where she could just house people and not worry about it. So she has 9 bedrooms in that house, right? We never have a problem finding housing for anyone because between my house, my neighbor's house, my other neighbor's house, I have a Shabbaton right there, 4 houses, right? Unbelievable, right? That's all she wanted. She got this house because she wanted to be able to give back. It's okay to take, to consume. That's what an ish is. An ish is a human being that is able to take fuel, turn it into light, turn it into heat and energy, and give back to the world and make it something so profound, right? But how does that work with our relationships with each other? You look at this room, there's a nice cross section of different kinds of people in here. more observant, less observant, interested, not so interested, not sure yet, figuring it out, and so on and so forth. Right? The way in which we as Jews build a healthy future for ourselves is through something called achdut, through unity. Right? It's through something called achieving oneness. And we see this as follows. And this is the precursor, by the way, from Matan Torah. It says, V'yisum Refidim, the verse in Shemot and Exodus says, that the Jewish people journeyed from a place called Refidim, V'yavo Midbar Sinai, they came to the Midbar Sinai desert, V'yachnu B'midbar, and they encamped in the desert. Now the word there, V'yachnu, is in plural. And then it says, V'yichan Sham Yisrael Neged Har, and the Jewish people encamped there in the singular before the mountain. So the sages ask, why does it switch? What's it called over here? Why does it switch from the singular to the plural to the singular? So Rashi says the reason why it switches is V'yichan Sham Yisrael. I've heard that a long time. V'yichan Sham Yisrael Ki ish echad b'lev echad. When the Jewish people were able to achieve this state called Ki ish echad b'lev echad, not Ki adam echad, Ki ish echad. When we reach the state of becoming individuals who understood that the purpose of life is that I can take from the physical world around me in order to give back to humanity, to make the world a better, greater place, when we got that kind of clarity, that is what allowed us to be able to receive this thing called the Torah, the instruction manual for life. That is when we were able to build this relationship where Am Yisrael said, they were able to point up and say, wow, there's God, right? That kind of clarity only comes from unity, my friends. We are mourning the fact this is a result of, the mourning of Rabbi Akiva's students. 24,000 students who missed this message. How do you miss that message? But it's so easy to lose yourself in a world of spirituality where you're so engrossed in the study and so engrossed in the thinking and connecting to this massive infinite source, and you lose yourself. But God created a world with humanity in it so that you could find godliness. How do you find godliness in humanity? You got to remember that each person in this room was created b'tzelem Elokim, in the image of the Almighty. There's a lot of people who passed away recently. Zachariah Wallerstein was one of them. He was a very interesting person, a very special person. I had the privilege of knowing him for quite some time. And I remember many years ago, I was in Israel, I was a student, and one of my Rabbi passed away. And I was going to the funeral. And on the way to the funeral, I said to Rabbi, look, just curious, this is a little insensitive question, I thought. Looking back, I think it's insensitive. But I was just curious. I said to him, if Jews believe that when someone dies, they go to heaven, why are we mourning at the funeral? Like, we should be throwing a party, like, have a siyum. Like make a siyum, make a kiddush, bring out shawarmas and vodkas, and let's make a party out of it. So he said to me, Reuvain, he's like, at the very least, you could understand that. Bottom line is, we miss someone. They're no longer here. So I said, I hear that. But he said something else to me which I loved. He said that every single person in this world has a unique ability to express godliness in their unique way. It's something that they can do and that no one else in the world can do. Each person sitting in this room has a special power of reflecting God's light into this world in their unique way that no one else in the world can do. And then one of the things that we're mourning, aside from the loss of that person, is the fact that that expression of godliness is no longer here. And then the question we ask ourselves, well, what are we doing to bring that light, that expression of godliness into the world? How do we express godliness in this world? Does anyone know? What does that mean? What does that look like? You know how you express godliness in this world? By being a mensch, by being normal, by being respectful, by loving your parents, by feeling gratitude, by standing up and taking initiative when no one else wants to take initiative. That's how you express godliness, because we come from a world that's just Darwinism, right? It's might makes right, right? Survival of the fittest. That's the world that I want to be a part of. No, that's not the world I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of a world where I believe in humanity's ability to recognize every single person's strengths, to recognize that we all have strengths and weaknesses, but it's irrelevant because bottom line is we have one thread that unites that we are the children of God. That every single person here has something profound to contribute. Every single person here has a unique mission. Every single person here can make a difference. But if you live in a world where it's only about you, where you're only thinking about yourself, you're definition of religiosity, your expression of Judaism, your way of looking at it. You're not open to learning from people. You're not open to asking questions from the people around you. You're not willing to learn. You are no different than Rabbi Shimon and his son in the cave, coming out and burning the world. So, what do we do on Lag BaOmer? We stop all the mourning. We have all these festivities, and we're remembering the fact that Rabbi Shimon was able to transcend this lower part of himself, right? And something much more profound, much more balanced, much more healthy, much more malleable, much more digestible, palatable for us. Because there's no question that every single one of us has this ability to connect with God. 100%. You have a powerful connection to the Borei Olam, and there's a journey there. The Torah is your guidebook. It will tell you how to get there. It tells you how to find all that. But if you're not willing to see the greatness in humanity, you're always going to be disconnected from God. You can't find God if you can't find the beauty in the people around you. It's not an accident if you're a healthy religious person that you're also generally a very giving, kind person. You're someone who loves to help out. You're someone like, I live in a community of people who you make a phone call and say, can you host a bunch of Russian kids from some other community? Like, how many can I take? Right? It's a weird thing. Your home is the most private space of the world. Right? Why would you share that with strangers? You're sharing that with strangers because those hosts understand the beauty and the power of connecting to people. I'm hoping that I'm hoping that each of you, thanks. I'm hoping that each of you walk away with the following idea. You walk away with the idea that you, my friends, can become an ish, right? That the more united you are in this group, thank you so much. I made a bracha earlier.
It's okay. Everyone at their level.
Actually, it's halakha. I made a bracha. You guys all the group. I made a bracha, so that I'm not anyone make it. So, my hope, my blessing to each of you, as you walk away from tonight with the clarity and understanding that you are a spiritual nuclear power plant of infinite potential. That you have the power of uniting the people around you. That you have the power of doing great things. You have the power of connecting with the people around you and amplifying your ability of connecting and helping the people. The Rage mission is still very much important to me. I've said this to everyone here, and I'm saying it publicly again. If I could do anything ever for anyone here at any level, I'm happy to do it. Happy to be anywhere. But I also always believed, and we've spoken about, Ronnie and I spoken a lot about this many, many years ago, so that the only way Rage has a future is if the people that graduated from Rage felt a deep sense of responsibility to give back to it. And that ultimately, that if we created all this, the classes, the rabbis, trips, Shabbatons, the experiences, speakers, connections, we did all of that. I mean, marriage, I just did my 500th wedding back there, but I was married a couple in this house, by the way, you know that? I just married this couple right over here, right? Mason and Margarita just got married. This is the wedding document right here. And I just married them in the back. You guys are sleeping. I'm marrying people. Right? We took their pictures and everything. Anyway, so these are my witnesses. If you were unable to walk away with, the feeling of gratitude for everything that these people have done for us, then we failed you as a community. Rage failed if we were unable to inspire its alumni to get up and feel a sense of indebtedness and gratitude to give back. How do you do that? There's 1,000 ways to give back. You could ask Rebecca, you could ask Rebecca Sid, you could ask Ray Goals, you could come and ask me, ask Ronnie. We all have, ask Dr. Faye. There's 1,000 ways to give back. And I want you to know, right? I'm going to get a little apocalyptic on you, right? As we're nearing these interesting times in history, okay? Wars in Ukraine, the world, it's a crazy time in history. And what we learned over the last 2.5 years, at least what I learned in the last 2.5 years, the world can change very quickly, right? I never thought I would live in a country where toilet paper would run out. Like, that was something that can happen. Right? Can you imagine? Like, there's lines of people buying toilet paper. That was 2 years ago. Because toilet paper crazy. People were going crazy with toilet paper, right? And now there's a shortage of baby formula in this country. Does that mean that they're restricting how much formula you can buy per family? That's insane. Like, this is 2022. We shouldn't be doing these things anymore. How is that our reality? But all of this is teaching me that the world changes very quickly. But there's one constant, and that's us, and how we respond to our circumstances. I can't change what happens with Putin and his war in Ukraine. I can't change the war, but I can change my response. I could donate. I could get up. I have students at Safra that actually flew out to Ukraine, to the border, and helped refugees like just escape and just like get into like out of the country and so on and so forth. There's 1,000 things you can do. I'm not saying you have to go that far, but you can do things. You have so much power. You have more power than you could possibly imagine. You, my friends, are Russian American Jews. You are the most powerful group of Jews on the planet. The only thing that you are lacking is like General Schwarzkopf after 9/11. They asked him, they said, where was the failure in intelligence in America? You know what he said? He said, there was no failure in intelligence. He's like, it was a failure in our imagination. We knew everything. We just couldn't imagine. Your weakness is not believing in your potential. Believe, and we could accomplish anything together. Thank you so much for having me.
Right.